Hello, CAP&GOWN scholars. This is Ms. Mojica with ACT Science, and today we're going to be talking about conflicting viewpoints. So these passages are going to require you to understand, compare, and contrast viewpoints, conclusions, and hypotheses. You'll only see one of these passages on your test, and it'll have about 7 questions to it. So these passages are going to be very lengthy. They're going to require a lot more reading of you than the previous 2 passages or passage types, research summaries, and data representation. So in these passages, you need to focus on finding the main idea. What is this passage talking about? What is the topic that's being discussed? And what are the differences and similarities between these scientists? What do they believe? What do they not believe? And so on. So follow along with this first example. So as we can see, this first passage has a lot of reading. It doesn't have any supporting data, no charts, tables, diagrams, graphs, nothing. It's just the passage. So we know that we're going to have to read to find our information. So let's figure out what this is talking about. If we read this introductory paragraph, we see an unmanned spacecrafts taking images of Jupiter's moon Europa have found its surface to be very smooth with few meteorite craters. Europa's surface ice shows evidence of being continually resmoothed and reshaped. Cracks, dark bands, and pressure ridges created when water or slush is squeezed up between 2 slabs of ice are commonly seen in images of the surface. 2 scientists express their views as to whether the presence of a deep ocean beneath the surface is responsible for Europa's surface features. So as we can see, we're talking about Jupiter's moon Europa and its surface. We see the mention of cracks, dark bands, pressure ridges, gives us a little bit of explanation what that might mean. And we are going to see what these scientists think. So scientist 1 says, a deep ocean of liquid water exists on Europa. Jupiter's gravitational field produces tides within Europa that can cause heating of the subsurface to a point where liquid water can exist. The numerous cracks and dark bands in the surface ice closely resemble the appearance of thawing ice covering the polar oceans on Earth. Only a substantial amount of circulating liquid water can crack and rotate such large slabs of ice. The few meteorite craters that exist are shallow and have been resmoothed by liquid water that oozed up into the crater from the subsurface and then quickly froze. Jupiter's magnetic field, sweeping past Europa, would interact with the salty deep ocean and produce a second magnetic field around Europa. The spacecraft has found evidence of this second magnetic field. Scientist 2 states, no deep liquid water ocean exists on Europa. That is completely contradicting Scientist 1 right there, right off the bat. So this would be a good place to make a note of a difference. If we keep going, we see the heat generated by gravitational tides is quickly lost to space because of Europa's small size, as shown by its very low surface temperature, a negative 160 degrees Celsius. Many of the features on Europa's surface resemble features created by flowing glaciers on Earth. Large amounts of liquid water are not required for the creation of these features. If a thin layer of ice below the surface is much warmer than the surface is, it may be able to flow and cause cracking and movement of the surface ice. Few meteorite craters are observed because of Europa's thin atmosphere. Surface ice continually sublimes or changes from a solid to a gas into this atmosphere, quickly eroding and removing any craters that may have formed. Our questions are asking us, Number 1 says, which of the following best describes how the 2 scientists explain how craters are removed from Europa's surface? Question 2 is asking us, according to the information provided, which of the following descriptions of Europa would be accepted by both? If we focus on just question 1, it's asking us to look at a point of view from both of the scientists. We can find this information in the passage. So the key word right here is craters and their removal. Right? So we know that the whole passage is talking about Europa's surface. We know that the craters in this surface are a huge topic, but craters is going to be more specific because that's what this is specifically focusing on. So if we look at our passage, this green is going to show us that information. So the few meteorite craters that exist are shallow and have been smoothed by liquid water that oozed up into the crater from the subsurface and then quickly froze from Scientist 1. So liquid water oozed up. Scientist 2, surface ice continually sublimes or changes from a solid to a gas into this atmosphere, quickly eroding and removing any craters. So we know here that our only option is going to be B. So we can confirm it with Scientist 1, right? We see filled by water. Scientist 2 does not agree with that. That is definitely a Scientist 1. So we could have eliminated A and D. Scientist two does say sublimation, but again, scientist one said filled by water. Our only option that agrees with both is B. Now moving on to question 2, we see, according to the information provided, which of the following descriptions of Europa would be accepted by both scientists? Again, if we look at the passage, this time in blue, we see that information. So here it is. Scientist 1 stated, the numerous cracks and dark bands in the surface ice closely resemble the appearance of thawing ice covering the polar oceans on Earth. Only a substantial amount of circulating liquid water can crack and rotate such large slabs of ice. Scientist 2 is telling us many of the features on Europa's surface resemble features created by flowing glaciers of ice. Therefore, our response to this question is going to be D. And again, both of these were found in the passage. These are very straightforward examples of something that we could see in conflicting viewpoints. But it is very important that as you're taking your test, you are using the test. Make notes where you see fit, try to write things out, take note of those differences, similarities, what their arguments are. Make sure you know what the topic is. And of course, as you're testing, aim for 5 minutes a passage so that you can make sure that you have plenty of time. So thank you for tuning in, scholars. Until next time.